So welcome everyone to our Kindred Career Talks. And today we have two wonderful speakers, and I would like for them to go ahead and just do a really quick introduction for us before we begin the questions. So, Teni, can you begin first?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Teni Ayo Ariyo. I graduated from King Drew in 2009, so it's really great to see some of the teachers that I had still on here, still here. Y'all are really lucky. So I am. I'll talk more about work later, right? Or should I introduce work now?
No, just go ahead, just a quick introduction before the questions.
All right. And I currently work at Microsoft in HR strategy.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kiara Brown. I am not a King Drew alum, but I graduated 2007 and went to LACES, but a couple of my friends and family members went to King Drew and graduated, so that's my relationship here. I currently work at California Institute of the Arts, and I do board governance and relations, and we'll get into that later about what all that means because I didn't even know what it meant when I first got hired in the role. So I'm happy to be here with you all.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and have our senior ambassadors start with the questions.
Okay, thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it greatly. So the first question that we have for you guys is why did you guys choose the career that you're doing right now?
Teni, you want to go first?
You can go.
Okay. I honestly, I tripped and fell into this career path that I'm on. And it wasn't something that I planned out. It wasn't something that I thought was going to happen. I literally was temping and fell into a role where I worked at a museum. I worked at the Natural History Museum as a temp. And then from there, I kept getting promoted and eventually started working as a board liaison. So what that meant for my career trajectory, I started off as like an assistant. So like working as a secretary for one of the vice presidents. And then the president of the museum noticed the work that I did and asked me had I ever managed a board, which is like the governing body of like a nonprofit organization. So think of like the board of directors or like for high schools, it's like the principal and they have like a board that they have to adhere to. And that's basically what overlooks nonprofit organizations. So I managed like 40 different personalities at the museum and working with all those individuals on behalf of, the Institute and making sure that the things we needed approved were done and the processes that needed to take place were also achieved. So that's how it happened for me. I mean, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to do public relations, and out of the need for like a job at the time, I ended up just taking what I could get, and I think that's a lot of the career path that I'm on. Like I never said no to an opportunity once it came my way, even if it didn't look like the ideal opportunity that, I had for myself in mind. And it also allowed me to create that position later on in my career. So it wasn't by choice, but it also wasn't something that I regret either. It's been really, really great. So.
Awesome. So similar to Kiara, I had kind of a series of changes in what I thought I wanted to do versus what I'm doing now. And so I have just kind of been asking myself, like, what am I doing now? What's next? So in college, I studied psychology, and so that was my major. And I thought that I wanted to go go to med school and be a psychiatrist after coming out of King Drew. But then I had the opportunity to do a business program while I was in undergrad, and that showed me that there's a human side of business in the corporate world, and a way that I could still apply my psychology degree. So that led me to thinking about human resources and thinking about when I'm working in a company, what motivates employees, how can we provide resources for employees to be successful and to reach their optimal potential. And so that's what led me to HR and led me to the career now. And now that I work at Microsoft, I wanted to work at a company that was global, a company where my impact will be, not just in the place I'm living and the place I'm working, but that it will touch people across the world. And Microsoft's mission is to empower people, right, to live their best. And so I'm able to do that every day through the job that I have.
Wow, thank you guys for those. Thank you, ladies, for those answers. I really like that. Both of your careers weren't necessarily things that you saw going into in high school or earlier, and they just kind of became something that you thought that you should pursue. So I guess my next question is, what was your dream career in high school, and how do you think that relates to your current career?
I'll take this. I spoke a little bit about this. So when I was at King Drew, I had the opportunity to do my hospital class in a foster care facility. I think it was a foster care place right next to campus, and that showed me that I loved working with children, and that I also really just loved like working with people one on one. And so from there, I thought, okay, I'm going to go to med school. I'm going to be a child psychologist. That was my dream and my goal, a child psychiatrist. And so when I got to college, I started to see that um, there were other options for me, and you know, maybe med school wasn't going to be it, but I was still able to use a lot of the skills that I learned at King Drew, even in hospital class, to think about like, how can I make impact by working one-on-one with people? How can I show care? How can I show, strategy and competence in the work that I'm doing? And so it shifted from child psychiatry to really thinking about like, how can I use psychology even in the work that I do, even if I'm in the corporate world, to make sure that the resources and the systems I'm building as an HR strategist are directly impacting the employees in a positive way.
And I also touched on it a little bit, but when I was in high school, I wanted to be a writer and a journalist like so bad. I wanted to be, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie Brown Sugar, but I wanted to be like a magazine editorial writer. Like I wanted to be editor in chief of a magazine. And when I got to college, those dreams got shattered quickly. And I'll tell you why. The professors weren't very lenient when it came to freshmen. They were like, look, you're not going to last in this major. You're not going to make it, honey. You might as well switch. And I was determined to like make it. Once somebody tells you you're not going to do something, it even puts the fuel under you to like want to try even harder. And during the time that I was in school, the Cal State system was going through a lot of budget cuts. So the classes that I needed in order to like be successful weren't available to me as a freshman. So long story short, I ended up switching my major like so many different times, like I think 7 or 8 different times, until I found like an area where I would still be able to be that writer that I wanted to be by majoring in English and not necessarily having to have to fight for these like journalism classes that weren't available for me. But when I graduated, I started thinking more so about like public relations, like coming back to LA and wanting to do PR work. I did informational interviews, and like the job market was just so scarce that, like I said, I tripped and fell into the museum and in the career that I'm in now. So like ultimately when I was trying to mold like this new dream job idea I was trying to connect the dots of the elements. Okay, what am I good at? Like I know I can write. I know that I can do public speaking. I know that I can like research and do certain things. So trying to like create like this new Frankenstein career, because that clear pathway didn't work out immediately in the way that I thought. So I for the first year that I worked at the museum, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this job for a year and then I'll get back to that path. And after the first year, it just the promotions kept happening. So that's what I mean. Like, you know, it may not have been my ideal career, but it turned out to be all the elements that I knew made me happy about going to work every day, and still being able to utilize those skill sets in the job that I did.
Thank you, ladies, for sharing a bit about your journey with us and the shifts you guys had. Our following question asks, could you guys tell us what a general salary for someone in your position / career looks like?
Well, working with a board, it depends. So a board of trustees can be comprised of like a corporate board where you have like the board of directors of different corporations that come in and kind of they shepherd you through the process of like managing your organization to make sure like all your bank statements are good, your budget is correct. And for a nonprofit, it's even more sticky because they have an endowment that's tax free. So it really varies. But for my position working in nonprofits, the salary range goes from anywhere from 40 to like up to $200,000. And it just depends on the size of the organization. Like if you're working for a smaller nonprofit, obviously it's a little bit smaller salary base. But if you go to bigger organizations, then you have more range to move up and create the pathway or the salary range that you desire. So yeah, I think the size of the organization is key when you're thinking about that career pathway.
Yeah, and so the HR profession, I think similar to Kiara, there's a wide range. And so for entry level, I would say it's around like 50,000. But if you make it up until like the chief HR officer of a large organization, then you're looking at like 500,000. So it really just depends on like where you want to land, what your career goals are, what your like long-term and short-term goals are. For my position now, since I went to business school, the range is like between 80 and 120. So coming out of getting a master's degree definitely helps in this field.
Thank you, ladies. And I know the pandemic has affected everybody, but we want to know like how your career was before COVID-19 and how it has changed.
So for me, I started my new job during the pandemic. So I have very limited experience before in this role and at this company. So I did intern here before, and so I was able to be on campus. But I think the major difference is that you lose the opportunity to collaborate with other employees as easily. You know, I can't like walk down and just be like, "Hey, I've got a question. Can you help me out?" Or I'm thinking about this, and like, you know, you have to book a meeting essentially for most things, or like write through chat, and it's just not the same. Some of that like creativity that you may have had just like in a natural conversation during lunch or grabbing coffee is missed. And so those are, I think, the major changes. I'm very impressed though that at how we're still able to maintain productivity and find new ways to still collaborate and to get the job done. So very thankful for like where technology is now.
And I've had a similar experience. So working with my trustees, they are our largest donors of the organization, and being able to like sit and talk with them about where they want their money to go when they're creating these donations has been really difficult to do over Zoom. I'm sure you all know, like nobody wants to continue to stare at a screen for like hours on end. So when you're trying to just have a simple conversation with people, their attention span is minimal. Before this job, we would do fun events like like go to art galleries, go to art openings, have like events at the campus. And those are the things I didn't get to experience fully because when I started in November of 2019, we had gone like completely remote March 2020. So I had like a few months on campus where I got to see like, oh, this is like the magic that happens. We have some students that will play music in the hallways during lunch hour, or they'll have exhibitions that turn over like every week. And I have trustees on my board like Don Cheadle and like, you know, major record label folks who want to come and see these things and they now can't. So like the opportunity to like engage with art, I think is the thing that I miss the most about that COVID has impacted, that I miss the most about working. But I also really appreciate the opportunity that we've had to be creative about how we stay connected. So I've been thinking about arranging like a virtual, you know, wine tasting for my trustees, or like even doing that with some of my coworkers. We've been talking about like happy hour or coffee hours and stuff like Teni just referred to. So it's been a struggle to be in a new job or be any new kind of place, any new place whatsoever, and doing it all on Zoom. Like you can't gauge people's, you know, personality over a computer. You can't get the feeling of like, am I doing this job right? Am I doing this right? Or, you know, am I just completely messing up? And you have to wait maybe like a day or a couple of hours until you get a response you need. And I think that's been the hardest. And on top of everything else that's just been happening, like in current events, social justice stuff, you know, the president, politics, all that has just like weighed heavy on this entire atmosphere. So that's just been the struggle, I think, overall.
I like that both of you ended up touching on, you know, your workplace relationships, how you make relationships with the people that you see on a normal basis. So I also wanted to ask, is or was your workplace people oriented before COVID-19? And if so, how do you maintain good relationships with your colleagues and coworkers over Zoom?
That's a good question. My company was very people oriented. It's our campus in Seattle, Washington feels, Redmond, Washington feels kind of like a college campus. We've got like lots of cafeterias, got lots of offices. People can kind of work from any office they want to. Um, so it's very, very communal and lively. And so it's a real challenge shifting to virtual only, because you kind of miss those moments on campus. And so people have been trying to be creative in how we still have social events online. So we've done like I've done a cooking class with some of my coworkers. We do like cocktail making and really try to think about how can we've had like, you know, a DJ come and play music while we're doing work and things like that. And so we've tried to be creative in making sure that we're not missing the social aspect of work, because that's really important when you're working with other people. To if you get to know them a little bit beyond just work, you're able to work with them better and able to achieve the goal together when you know them a little bit on a human level outside of work. And so we've been trying to continue that even with the limitations that we have because of COVID.
See, and my job has struggled with this a lot. Working for a college and working for a school, COVID-19 has made it very difficult to maintain that social activity with my colleagues. And mostly because we've been in, you know, save the campus kind of mode. For colleges, the pandemic has hit us very, very hard. And for our arts college in particular, where we are trying to teach art over a computer, it's proven to be a huge boulder that we've just been pushing uphill. So like thinking about the social aspect has not been on the forefront of like our president's mind. And that's what I work for. Aside from the board, I work for the president. And I know he wants to do these things, but we really haven't had the time, based on our enrollment, based on our budget, based on the things that we are trying to save to keep the institute afloat. Those social and connectivity activities have been like very minimal. We meet every single day and we try to sprinkle in a little bit like of humor or comedy or light in those meetings, but we haven't really thought about the mental break that needs to occur, when you do need to engage with your friends, your colleagues, your whomever, like that mental break hasn't been there. And I think that's like been another tough challenge in the pandemic, is that you don't really have the freedom or like have the creativity or freedom to be able to want to engage with your colleagues in the same way, because you're looking at them for so long, you're meeting with them so many times a day. So when it comes to another additional social aspect to do on the screen, people are like, "Ugh, again," so we're getting through that. We're trying to navigate through that. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it hasn't been easy, but it's something that now that we've gotten through I think the hardest part of the pandemic, which was all of last year, we're now shifting our focus, like, okay, we really need to take care of the people who got us to this moment, who got us out of that, like that, I don't want to say dark place, but who got us out of that like moment where we really needed to take care and like get the buckets of water out of the institute, So I think we're working on it. I'll just say, we're fixing it. We're trying to get there, but not completely there yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys. It has been harder since everything's on the screen. So it's like you're done doing the work, but now it's time to socialize and stuff. It still is hard. So the next question we have for you guys is, do you see the value in students learning things that can prepare them for the future? What are some key points you would like students to take away from your presentation?
I'll start. I think there's value in making sure that you have more than one skill. You don't have to be great at everything, but just make sure that you know a little bit of multiple skills. And I think that'll serve you well in the future. For me, I knew writing was the thing that I was really good at, but I wasn't afraid to try to learn other things that would even elevate me further or set me apart from other people. And I think one of the key takeaways that I would want folks to know from my presentation today is like, it's not about how you start, but it's about how you finish. You can start your life on a career path or journey that you think is like the perfect one for you or like ideal. But like when you get closer to that finish line, and I'm nowhere near the finish line, I don't even think that I'm there yet. But like as you inch towards that finish line, you learn that like that ideal that you had in your mind isn't even the way that you're supposed to go. You're going to tap into other parts of yourself or other strengths that you have that you didn't know needed to be cultivated until like you got the opportunity to tap into it. And I think that's something that's really key and important to learn. Like I would have never been able to like speak in front of a group or did public speaking or like engage with government officials in the way that I do now had nobody given me the opportunity to do so. So I think like just certain skills and just getting out of your comfort zone a little bit is definitely key to setting yourself up for success. And like honestly, don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're what make you you. Mistakes are what make you special. Mistakes are what teach you. Mistakes teach you better than like a book ever will. I'll say that. And I think that's pretty much it.
Great. Those are great points. I think it's very important to learn things that can help you prepare for your future. And you all being at King Drew, you have tons of opportunities, some may be optional to just continue to build your skill set, build your confidence. Even something like this where you all are interviewing professionals, like that skill can carry over to college and even afterwards because you're developing listening skills, you're developing inquisitive and curiosity. And so just remember that a lot of the skills that you have the opportunity to build here do carry over, and you can continue to strengthen them over time. So don't take opportunities for granted that you're given. Even if you like, oh, I don't see the point of this, like still try it. Still like just put yourself out there, because you never know what it will lead to afterwards. Um, and the key takeaway for me is that don't be afraid to like step out of your comfort zone. So for me, after I graduated from King Drew, I had lived in like the area in like South Los Angeles area for most of my life, and so for a large chunk of my life. And so when it was time to go to college, I was like, well, what's gonna be out of my comfort zone? Like, where is kind of the furthest place I can go? And so I went to Dartmouth College in New Hampshire, and that for me was totally out of my comfort zone, but it was also a life-changing experience because I got a chance to learn um, from other people. I got from other people with other backgrounds, and really just to, to stretch myself and challenge myself. And now I don't see any limits. Like I feel like I can live anywhere and be adaptable to any situation. Um, and so that's a key takeaway for me, is just you all have a good foundation coming from King Drew. And so really like use it for your advantage, and really dream big and large, because you all are very capable.
Thank you both for those answers. Those are really inspiring, and um, you know. My next question will be, what specifically encouraged you to give your presentations to these students here, our King Drew students?
I am always a big advocate of like not forgetting where you came from. And so King Drew has a very special place in my heart. I had a chance, I really feel like King Drew set me up for success, long-term success, because I had great teachers. I was surrounded by other students who were motivated, who came from backgrounds that were similar to me. I had got to do hospital and get exposed to some like different internship opportunities or research opportunities while I was at King Drew, that really just gave me more than I would have ever known was possible at that age. And from there, I always always was like very curious and looking for opportunities, because I received that support at King Drew. And so it was important for me to come back and to be like, hey guys, like I'm here, in a large part because of what I got from King Drew. And, I have the opportunity now to work at a global company and like make huge impact. And like Kiara said, our stories are just starting, and really to encourage you all to just keep going.
And I mentioned this earlier on, but I have several family members and friends who went to King Drew. But what motivated me to come here today, honestly, I know how much representation matters. And I know how much it matters to hear like somebody's real story about what they went through. Because in high school, like everyone wants to give you like a clean cut version of like what their story is. And it's not always that easy. Like I'm in a great career right now, but it wasn't without its its troubles. It wasn't without its mistakes. It wasn't without, people telling me that I was never going to get to this place. So I just want people to know, like, if you feel like at any point you're making those mistakes in your life right now, you have the opportunity to change that course. You have the opportunity to make your life into whatever it is that you're dreaming up for it in your head. Like whatever that is you want it to be, you can do that. And I'm not saying that just to be like, to blow smoke up anybody, but it's really true. And, that's what motivated me to come here and speak to you all today, because There's no reason that I should be able to say like I've had this journey that I've had, especially with the obstacles that I went through. I mean, when I graduated high school, I literally got rejected from every single college I applied to. And I was a good student. I had a 3.3 GPA. There was no reason for that, but I was like, okay, what went wrong? What happened, you know? Um, so to be able to sit here and be like a testament of like, okay, mistakes happen. You're going to get roadblocks. You're going to have things that's going to test how hard you want to push through. And I'm here to tell you, like, don't stop. Don't stop. Just keep pushing through. And if there's, you know, anything about this pandemic that seems like, you know, it's never going to be the same, keep going forward, because what you guys are experiencing right now, what you're creating right now is a brand new world that we're all going to have to adapt to. You guys are going to be creating a brand new idea of what it means to like have a hybrid working space, a hybrid school space. You guys are the innovators of that. So, you know, you can invent like what works, what doesn't, what needs to change, what needs to happen, you know, and that's the takeaway. You know, if there's anything else for you to feel, like, just know that you can be the self-starter for everything that happens in the future.
Thank you guys so much for that wonderful advice. We'll really be using it. If you guys have anything else you'd like to share, or students, if you have any questions for them that you guys would like to ask, you guys are more than welcome to unmute yourself or put it in the chat. I'm sure they'll be glad to answer.
It usually takes a moment for our students to ask the questions. But here's one. If we are confused right now and don't know how to navigate what we want to do after graduating high school, what advice would you have for us?
I just want to say first that none of us have it figured out. Like, I'm still confused some days. And, you know, people are like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, people still keep asking that question, even when you're like 30 and 40, because we don't know. But we do the best we can, right? And so my advice is just think about what's next. Don't think about like, what do I want to do that's going to be for the rest of my life? Because that's probably not going to end up being what you do for the rest of your life anyway. Just think like, what do I want to do next? Is college right for me? Hopefully it is. And you know, then you pursue that. When you get to college, you say like, okay, these are the options I have for majors. What interests me, but also what major can I do to set myself up for success in terms of being able to get a job after college. So try to find that balance between doing what you like, but also doing a major where you feel like, you know, you'll be able to sustain yourself, because that's really important too. And so don't think so think you want to think big and you want to dream, but you also don't want to be so hard on yourself that what you do after high school is going to um, be, you know, determine the rest of your life, because you still have a lot of room to grow and change and make up your mind, but it's really important that you're thinking like, what's the next step, instead of just stopping and not doing anything at all.
And I would just add to that, like, if some people take a year off, like you know what's best for you. And if you're confused about it or you're still trying to decide, like, take time to write that down and figure it out. There is no rush. College isn't going anywhere, you know? And I think that taking stock of the things that you ultimately, you know what you want to do, or know that you're good at, is also really key. One of the things that I wish I had done differently is take the opportunity to do community college before transitioning to like a huge university or a Cal State system. Some people, it works for some people and it doesn't for others. It just really depends on you. I know some people who were able to do it that way and transfer into, I went to San Francisco State, so transfer into SS State after doing community college for just like the generative beginning freshman and sophomore coursework. So that way you're saving money, but also you have the opportunity to like feel out like what college is like and what classes you like, or you know, those things. And also look at the coursework you're taking now. Like what classes do you look forward to? What classes do you currently shine in, like effortlessly, right? That could also help you figure it out. If it's, don't knock, you know, physical education. If it's PE, then let it be PE. You could do kinesiology. You could be a physical trainer. You can literally do anything under the sun, but you have to figure out what kind of sparks you on the inside, and then that'll help you determine that a little bit better. That would be my advice to anybody who's just struggling, trying to figure out, like, you know, how do I know what I need to know once I get there? How do I know what my major is going to be? You know, you'll know once you've found your happy place. You're like, oh, this feels easy. Oh, and I can still like graduate with a degree that'll get me a job. Oh, this is great. Like, you know, and then you'll stick with it.
Thank you both for those answers.
And
oh, did you want to add something?
oh no, I was just gonna ask if I could answer the second question that's in the chat about discrimination at the workplace. If that's all right. I will say, you know, being a young Black woman at a place like CalArts, it's predominantly white. It's in Santa Clarita. I've had people discriminate towards me and question my abilities, and I feel like that's always going to happen. Like even my trustees who are like head execs talk about the discrimination they face, and it's something that is getting better, but a lot of companies and corporations still don't know the first step of how to address the issue. But this is another reason why it's very important for you to make space for yourself in these places, and why it's important for folks like Teni and I to hold the door open for opportunities for students like you guys, because it's a long way to go. There's a long way for a lot of companies to go, and without the opportunity to have someone be like, hey, this is a microaggression, or hey, this is kind of messed up, they're not going to know how to correct that behavior. So it's really important to share your stories and to make sure that you create a seat at the table if they're not making one for you, because they're not thinking of the issues of people that look like us. We're making those things prominent for them to worry about, and the news is as well. So it's really, really important. Can't stress that enough.
Similar to Kiara, I think that of being a Black woman in so I went to a predominantly white school for college, and then after graduating, worked in a predominantly white workplace, and even now, right? And so that experience, I'm so grateful I went to King Drew, because it gave me confidence to know that like my peers and people who look like me are just as smart as anybody else, and just as capable. And so I'm able to walk into those spaces. And yes, sometimes the discrimination or like microaggressions, or just people's doubting that you are smart or that you can do the work, or thinking you're just there because they just needed to fill a quota. Like all of that has happened to me in all of the different capacities. But I always just think back to like the communities I came from, and then look at the people who I work with, and I'm like, you're not smarter than us. Like we're just as capable, if not more capable and more resilient. So that gives me confidence to overcome any of those discrimination. And I'm really just like, remember who I am, and let that give me the drive to push forward, and also to make space for other people, because it's so important to be able to be in a room where no one looks like me, and then the next person that comes who looks like me can see me there and say like, wow, I feel like I belong, right? I feel like I don't have to, I see someone succeeding who looks like me, and that means that I can too. You got a question, I think, for Kiara.
Yeah. So I want to make the statement that I loved my college experience at San Francisco State. Um, at the time that I went, so this was 2007 to 2012, we had a pretty strong Black student union, and like the campus is a commuter school. So you, similar to like CSUN or any other school like in this area, like Dominguez, I think is also the same way. You have a lot of students who commute in from all parts of the city or all parts of the Bay Area. So there isn't much of like a campus life after the last class at like 4 o'clock or something. So it's really like a community in the daytime, and then towards the evening it's just kind of like nah. So I will say the demographics are really, really mixed. It's a makeup of, at the time when I was going there, it was a makeup of what the city looked like. So imagine coming from LA and going to a place like San Francisco. They have a lot more Asian Pacific Islander communities, but it was a mixture. It wasn't too much of, I mean, it was a lot of white students there, but it wasn't too much of one over the other when it came to other minority groups. We were all pretty mixed up because of the metropolitan area. The Black Student Union was great. I mean, once you're on that campus and they see you and you're a Black person, you're Latino, or you're any person of color, it's like, hey, you need to join this club. It's kind of like they automatically take you under their wing and look out for you. And you start to build those relationships and connectivities that way. Everybody looked out for each other in that sense. And you were always invited to like BSU events or like any other events that that came up for other different cultures and ethnicities. So it was cool. I liked it a lot, I guess.
Well, I think that's really cool that we can see you guys today, because I think the daunting thing for a lot of King Drew students is that when we're thinking about our career choices, we don't really see ourselves. And I like it that we can see, like people like you guys, our big sisters in a way, and we can kind of see ourselves in those places. So thank you guys for that. So thank you guys for these presentations. And if you want to share like an anecdote, advice, words of wisdom, you can. But yeah, thank you guys for these presentations so far.
It's been an honor for me to be here with you guys. Like I can't even imagine what it's like being in high school right now and being in a Zoom room with your peers and everything. So I appreciate everybody who paid attention, who got up today, who listened to me rant about like yesteryear and all that stuff. And I just want to say, like, if there's anything that I could do to be a helpful resource, like I'm happy to do so. I'll share out my email if anybody has any questions about like CalArts or what it means to be a board professional, to work with boards, or anything else you might have, like questions about San Francisco State. I want to say, like, I'm proud of all of you for just sticking with this pandemic and sticking with this new space, because we're all just trying to figure this stuff out together. And to be a student right now, I know how difficult it is. So you guys are doing something that nobody can relate to. You guys are literally the first to do something that your parents can't relate to, your siblings can't relate to. I can't even relate to this. And you're going to come out of this so much stronger and so much wiser than all of us, because you've lived it. This is your lived experience. Similar to how people talk about like millennials, our lived experience. You guys have the most unique lived experience. You lived through a pandemic while in high school, applying for colleges. That's nothing like small. So, be proud of yourselves for all of that, and, just be thankful for this moment.
Yeah, what Kiara said is so true. One of my brother is also in 12th grade, and so I empathize with you all so much, because it's hard. It's hard to, you all are also missing a lot of your key experiences that high school comes with, your social experiences. And I realize that like home, may be difficult sometimes to be like all the time. And so really just want to encourage you all to um, continue doing what you can at school, showing up, and also thinking about like making space to think about, what your goals are. What do you like what have you enjoyed, because now you have a little bit more time to think about, who you are as a person, who you are right now, who you want to be, what impact you want to have on the world. And so really just taking this time where we have, more time at home and time to ourselves to think about some of those things, so that when we are out of this phase, you will be able to come out with some lessons that you can use for yourself in the future.
Again, we want to thank Teni and Kiara for joining me today. We really appreciate all the advice that you guys gave us, the questions you answered. We really do appreciate it. We want to thank you and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, and good luck to you all.
Good luck.